This is me circling a bush strip in Outback, New South Wales a little while ago, preparing to land at a place called Mungo Lodge. And in this video, I want to share the 3 big lessons I learned when flying into that bush strip. Yes, Melbourne is in lockdown again, number 6 for us now. I got a little bit sad about it, I will be honest, but I remembered that I didn't want to focus on the negatives of Delta and restrictions, and I'd rather focus on the positives of flying and freedom. And I love making videos like this for you. So settle in, grab some popcorn. Popcorn. Grab some popcorn and let's look at the first thing I learned.
Mungo Lodge traffic, Echo Yankee Zulu is positioning for a downwind for runway 24, Mungo Lodge.
So like I've just said on the radio there, this is me getting ready. Mungo Lodge has got 2 cross runways, which is really good obviously in case you've got differing wind conditions. In my case, I was coming in to land on runway 24, so I'm just downwind at the moment. Mungo Lodge and the airstrip's down to my left-hand side. I'm just sorting out my power settings, trying to get my speeds accurate. There's a few bumps here as well. We're out in the desert, so it is quite low down. So I'm experiencing a few little bumps here and there, but positioning myself, and there's no one else in the circuit, so I'm not making a base call. Now it's a short flight from Mildura, where I took off from the morning off this flight to Mungo Lodge, only about 20 minutes. And I didn't have an awful lot of time in those 20 minutes to prepare myself for exactly what I was going to do in the event of a go-around. And that's pretty bad. I mean, I'm an instrument-rated pilot, and I brief myself on go-arounds and missed approaches when I'm doing an instrument approach, but it's a habit that I kind of fall out of sometimes when I'm doing just normal standard VFR approaches. And that's one of the big lessons, is that I really should have briefed myself on what to do if I was going to go around, which I personally think I should have done, as you'll see in a second for this landing.
Mungo Lodge, Cirrus Echo Yankee Zulu turning final, runway 24, full stop, Mungo Lodge.
Now my navigation devices, the Garmin GTN 650s, don't have Mungo Lodge in their database as an airstrip, so the aircraft at this point thinks I'm basically planning to fly into the ground, so it starts to give me these terrain warnings.
Terrain ahead. Pull up. Pull up.
And you can see me just fiddling around with some switches there with my right hand. You'll see I'll do it again in a second. Here we go. Now I hit the right one. I've got a button on the Cirrus which says terrain in op, which can basically turn off those terrain warnings. But I hit the wrong button first of all, but I've already lost about 5 or 6 seconds, which is quite a lot on short final when I'm trying to position myself in quite a fast moving aircraft. I'm doing probably about between 80 and 90 knots at this point here on final. As a result of that, I was too high, so I'm actually starting to dip down. I'm gaining speed, and what's happening now is I'm starting to carry too much speed into this final approach. And so what happens as I come over the threshold is I try and flare, and I float, and I float, and I float. And you can see the aircraft's not really coming down, it's just staying above, and then it touches down. Now if I just wind that back and you take a look at that landing from the camera I've got underneath the wing, you can see I only touched down just short of the cross runway. And because I was carrying too much speed, because I was floating, because I didn't get down before about 1/3 of the runway distance had been taken away, and it's a 900-meter strip, so that's a good sort of 300 meters of wasted runway behind me, I really think I should have executed a go-around at that point. The second mistake then, let's go back to the 360 camera so you can see the landing gear. Generally, when you're landing in Cirrus, you do land fairly flat. On a dirt strip, as a lot of you who fly Outback flying will know, if you've got a tricycle gear aircraft, you want to keep the weight off that nose wheel for as long as you can. Unfortunately, because I was carrying too much speed on this approach, I couldn't get the nose up without actually ballooning the aircraft up. So I was just holding it above the runway, waiting for that speed to dissipate, and as a result, I was very flat. And you can wind all that back to that one point where I had that terrain warning, got distracted, lost my attitude and positioning on the runway, had to point the nose down, gained too much speed, so I came to the runway too fast, flared, floated, couldn't get the nose up. All of that goes back to not having a stable approach. And the final lesson came 2 days later when I was actually departing the strip, and this was my engineer Stephen Howe from Blue Demon. His words were ringing in my head. He said, when you're taking off on a gravel strip, make sure you're not just sitting there with the aircraft idling, blowing all those stones back into your propeller and into your aircraft. I found this really cool clip actually which illustrates this point really well. When I flew to the Temora Air Show and I was taxiing across a gravel strip, have a look at the little vortices that you can see underneath the propeller here. You can quite easily see if there's anything down there and you're not moving forwards very quickly, it's just going to suck all that rubbish up into your prop, and at the speed it's spinning around, you can do some pretty serious damage. So because the Continental engine takes a while in the Cirrus to warm up before even starting, I decided decided to do some basic housekeeping on the runway first. Kicking all the big stones away before starting up Echo Yankee Zulu. Keeping it nice and clear, so we don't get any nicks in the prop. The colour of my shoes now though, it's like flying on Mars. These ones can all go. Now we have a nice clear path free of stones, so I'm not going to get any chips in my propeller as I taxi out to the runway. Then it was a case of starting up, let the cylinders come up to temperature slowly, knowing that there's no stones below me to fly up into the prop. And once I was ready for takeoff, it's one long constant roll. I didn't actually stop, and that's why you can see I do this big looping circle, because I actually want to build up a little bit of speed in this S-turn before getting to the runway and then slowly increasing the power. It's not one fast power movement, it's a slow increase of power, so I'm rolling on the runway, building up that speed, and as it turns out, I only took a couple of 100 meters before taking off and saying bye to Mungo Lodge. Obviously, talk to your instructor before you try anything you've seen in this video, please. This is just one pilot's opinion. Oh, I also want to talk about this, for which I'm incredibly grateful, but I have a bit of a giveaway planned for that in the future once I'm out of this lockdown situation, so stay tuned for that. Also later this week, an exclusive video coming your way in the air traffic control tower at Sydney Airport. A really good behind the scenes look at what goes on up there. That's coming at the end of this week. Otherwise, thanks for sticking with me through this lockdown period. I hope you're doing all right out there as well, whatever situation you're in right now. Thank you as always for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Grab some popcorn. Grab some popcorn. Do not have Mungo Lodge as a railway station. 360 cameras. I landed like an idiot. I found this really cool shot actually when I landed at, oh, what air show was it? So because the Cirrus, lockdown here again, I apologise.